Welcome to Better Fishing with Two Bald Biologists, a podcast from the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. We're your hosts, Corey Oakley and Ben Ricks, two bald guys who happen to be fish biologists and avid fishermen. We hope the information that you learn in this podcast will help you think like a fish and become better fishermen.
Okay, guys. Corey, how you doing today?
I am doing good.
So we've got different speed on today. We've got Kyle Van Altis. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Kyle Van Altis. I am the District 2 captain, kind of the central coastal region with the Wildlife Commission. So I'm glad to be here today.
Corey, have you been fishing lately?
I have, with you.
That is true.
Yeah, we'll talk about that on the podcast here in a little while, I think. But yeah, we were pretty successful that day. So it hadn't been too bad. I actually thought about bringing my picture of my smallmouth bass again, but I thought that might be a little overdone since I did that on the last podcast.
Just tack it up on the wall right beside the logo.
I thought, bringing my 6+ pound smallmouth and just like framing it and putting it right here on the desk for you. So that just a reminder that there was a day that I had a great day.
Just point it at me.
Yeah, just shine it. Maybe if it would shine a light down upon you and be like, see, told you so. But yeah, probably not going to happen.
So those of you who don't know, Corey caught a big smallmouth, and it's bigger than a smallmouth that I have caught. So there's that.
It's the biggest smallmouth I've ever caught, or seen for that matter. So I was quite happy with it.
Very proud moment for him, if you can't tell. So my living arrangements for the summer have changed due to my wife's job, and I have access to some ponds, and I have had a bit of a pond fishing revival.
It's been a tough life for Ben.
Yeah, but after dinner, I get to go fish some ponds.
I'm familiar with some of these ponds. I bet you have had a good time.
They're a lot of fun, getting back into some of my bass fishing roots, throwing Senkos, tying spinnerbaits on, because
you don't do a lot of that where you are.
If you buy a spinnerbait out of the pack and don't tie it on, you're going to say goodbye to that spinnerbait skirt relatively quickly. So there's a tip for you.
Yeah, they do go bad.
There's a tip for you, especially if your spinnerbaits are somewhat dated to begin with.
Yeah.
Go ahead, pull out some braid, pull out some mono, pull out some dental floss, whatever it takes. Tie your skirt on, or you will watch parts of your skirt drift away from you.
Yeah. Like first cast, it'll fly off as it's going, and then when it hits the water, it's like it dissolves into the water.
Mm-hmm. It also is true for buzzbaits. Yes, I learned that one
they're the same
as well. So
yeah, they are one and the same.
But no, fishing's been relatively good. Summertime pattern, so it's been a lot of fun. It's summertime right now, so when you'll be listening to this, it will still be summertime, but just later. So, Kyle, have you been fishing at all lately?
I have, yeah. I spent a lot of time in the lower Cape Fear, kind of the Southport area, and the fishing's good.
So you're a game warden and you fish. We're going to go ahead and get that out there.
It's not technically a requirement. It's highly encouraged, and I think it should be a requirement.
So we have fish biologists that fish and some that don't. And it's always interesting who does and who doesn't, and how they got interested in fisheries and whether or not they fish or not. Those are interesting dynamics that we have across all of our staff. We have some that are very avid anglers, and we've got others who, are into other facets of
just like being outside.
Wildlife. Yeah. So they all should like being outside because they're outside a significant part of their job. So let's talk a little bit today about, our listeners. I think you have a unique perspective. I've known Kyle since I started in District 2. He was in the area that I was a fish biologist in when I moved to the Central Coast. We had a lot of mutual friends. We got to know each other, and Kyle reached out and said, I think you should do a podcast and talk about some enforcement. And that's the problem. If you call me and you say, I think you should, you just volunteered.
Yeah, pretty much.
So if you're listening,
that's how it went.
Want to be on the podcast, maybe, volunteering is a good way to do it. But Kyle, I think a lot of Kyle. I think he does some good work. He's got a level head. He does a lot of work that's not just the typical, what everybody thinks. He's not just every day writing tickets, are you?
No, there's a lot more to the job than that, for sure.
It's always funny to me when I run into folks because they'll be like, do you know, like, you work for a Wildlife Commission, right? Do you know so-and-so? And I'm like, Yeah. They're like, he wrote me a ticket once. I'm like, was you breaking the law? And they reluctantly generally say, yes, I was. So, these guys are great guys, but don't expect them to not do their job, especially if you're breaking the law.
Yeah, certainly. I've actually been deep in the woods playing disc golf with somebody that said, hey, can I play in with you? And then they asked me halfway through, you remember me? And you're like, I know where we're going with that. Great guy. Went good. We played out just fine.
So, I mean, every speeding ticket I've gotten, I'm probably deserved. So there's that.
It comes with the territory. It's part of the job.
But that's not really why we're here. Yes, we have rules, and yes, you need to obey them because you will get a blue light special, which we talk about on occasion.
Occasionally, we've mentioned that on the podcast.
But there's way more to enforcement than, just writing tickets and trying to catch people in every facet of their life. I mean, y'all aren't doing that really. So
no. I mean, I think we talked about it earlier. At the end of the day, like there's a big part of like that game warden ethos that catching the poacher, that's the intentional violator, the person that goes out there and wants to break the law. But that's not your average outdoors person at all. That's such a small percentage of the outdoor population. Most of what we're doing is just out there making sure the public's safe. We encourage people to be out there. We enjoy them being out there. My favorite days are when I get to go out there on a boat I didn't pay for, or in gas I didn't pay for, and checking people that are doing the same thing that we love to do when we're not working. And if we don't find the first person in violation, that's a good day of going boat to boat and just talking with people who are doing the same things we like to do. And it's a good day. It's a very good day. And we do a lot besides that, just in just helping people. Like we're here to help people. That's what we do.
That's right. I mean, y'all do all kinds of stuff. I mean, y'all are fully licensed. You do everything that any other enforcement person in North Carolina can do, correct?
Oh, yeah. I mean, helping whether it's disabled motorists, disabled boaters, whether it's writing depredation permits to landowners who are having issues with things depredating their crops. We've got swift water teams that just really got stood up, did some fantastic work during Helene. Just horrible damage, but out there, front lines leading the way, do a lot of work, just a lot of public service. There's a lot more to it than just enforcing law, big part of it, but it's not the only part.
Yeah, we have one of our survey boats is this really small boat that has, you can about drive it anywhere. And the enforcement guys, it's like there's a race to who can get that boat the quickest, because it's so nimble. It can get in, you can drive it down a deep ditch full of water. And so, as soon as there's a hurricane, the guys are calling saying, hey, Ben, can we get that boat again? And they use it for all numbers of things, and none of which is writing tickets in that instance. It's all trying to help folks and get folks away from high water and that kind of thing.
Where is that boat? Could I move it close to me? As you're describing that, I'm like, that's what I need. Yeah, we need boats like that. A 20-foot barge doesn't do anything for storm response. You need those smaller craft that you can really get in, launch in a ditch, and get up to the homes and do what you need to do for the public.
So walk us through, I know there's probably not a typical day and it varies through the season, but since we're in the summer, walk us through a typical day for a summertime person in enforcement.
Yeah, well, you nailed it when you said, season. There's a huge seasonal aspect. So summertime enforcement is really going to change depending on where you are in this state. That's one of the cool things about this job too, is this job in the mountains looks very different compared to this job in the coast. Now, for me, where I'm at in the summertime on the coast, it means a lot of boating safety enforcement. So we're spending a ton of time on the waterway, kind of like highway patrolmen on the water. We're investigating boat crashes. We're making sure people are operating in compliance with the law. We also do quite a few boating safety programs. So we teach a lot. It's one thing people don't necessarily realize about officers. We do a lot of educational. It's a huge part of our mission. And so we're teaching boating safety courses and dealing also a lot with depredation. Crops are growing, things are chewing on them. So we're writing permits for that. And then if you come to my area of the coast, a lot of problem nuisance alligator captures and relocation. And I would love to get y'all trained on that to help, because we do a ton of that and I could use some help.
I'd love to see Ben jump on the back of an alligator. That'd be awesome.
Well, I've got some.
I offered to get one about a week ago. So
really?
Yes.
I can make that dream come true.
So I will say from a previous life in a previous state that catching an alligator in survey net is
A disaster.
not something that you really want to do.
That's a one-time use net.
Yeah, it didn't.
Ben, how do you feel about alligator surveys at night? Do you enjoy those?
You should make sure that you are in a motor that works. There was an evening, we're going down the road, but you started it. So I helped with an alligator survey one time, and the boat broke down, and we had to paddle home
In the dark.
in the dark in a significant. I was ready to just,
I'm assuming it's in a place that has alligators since there was a survey.
we didn't see one.
Oh,
That was the best part. But yeah,
There were none to be
the
found.
boat broke down and we had to paddle home, and it was a long night, and yeah,
Wind probably blew a little
the
bit.
wind was blowing and we were paddling against it at one point, and yeah, I was ready to just like put my head against a PFD and call one of you guys at 7:00 in the morning and say, y'all can come and get me now. But yeah, anyway, we got it done, and I'll be happy to help with future alligator surveys, but don't expect me to volunteer. That's what I'll say. You're going to have to
Wrangle me.
Ben Ricks, we actually need your help, like exclusive invite, and then I'll be happy to help.
Sorry
So-
to bring up a sore subject. I apologize.
So I did do the alligator surveys in a previous life in a previous state where we did see lots of alligators. So that was interesting. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen to you out there in your, boats break down. And that's why you should always be prepared. And we were prepared, just not quite as prepared as we needed to be. So where were we?
I don't know. We were talking about his summertime job.
You teach people
yes. Yeah. we
boater
sure do.
safety, which is a huge deal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
it's a legal requirement. And then we would just highly recommend it because it's a little bit of the wild, wild west out there in the water. You don't need near as much in order to get on the water as you do on the road. So some of those lessons people learn the hard way, and we'd like them to learn it the easy way in class.
yeah, coming off a holiday weekend, I could highly recommend some boater safety just to all. And even if you've already taken it, a refresher never hurts. So
Well, the thing is that it's a device that people don't use that often. So a boat, they feel like it's kind of like a car, that it's going to stop when they think it's going to stop and it's going to go when they think it's going to go. And that's not what a boat does. A boat has, unless you're controlling it at all times under operation, it's not going to do what you think it's going to do. And then the wind and all things like that add so many different factors. And I just tell people, like, the more you do it, the better you will be. And you got to keep using it and practicing it. If you're a boat operator that operates a boat 3 times a year, you're not going to be very good at it. And you're a danger to yourself probably, and a danger to the others that are around you, because you're not, in my mind, sufficiently trained. That's my 10 cents on it.
you got to be careful out there.
You just got to be careful.
and be conscious and aware of what's going on all the time.
Yeah. And I would say the biggest thing, I've worked in a lot of places and been on the water in a lot of places. And like, particularly when it's crowded, like a holiday weekend, like Memorial Days and July 4th and Labor Days and places like that, man, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And you have got to be paying attention to all the people that are around you. There's people in the water. There's people on boats. There's people on jet skis. There's people everywhere. And you better be paying attention or something's going to happen. Anyway, my soapbox, sorry. I don't like bad boat drivers. They drive me crazy. Everybody that's ever been in a boat with me that's seen a bad boat driver knows I get pretty fired up when somebody's doing something really stupid on a boat. Sorry, soapbox. We went down Alligator Road. I thought we'd go down my soapbox road.
Just give everybody a wide berth, I think is
Yes.
what he's saying.
Yes.
So,
That is true.
what is your favorite thing about your job?
I love how much change there is over those different seasons. So we've got about 4 months of the boating season this summer. And then we're going to switch over into the hunting seasons. They run through about January. If you've got duck hunting, like we certainly do at the coast, move into springtime turkey hunting and fishing, right back into the summer. It's never the same, just long enough to get your belly full. And then you're on to the next thing. So I'm outside all the time, which is where I like to be. I wasn't cut out for office work. And there's just always something new around the corner that you've never thought you were going to run into. So you're always engaged, always interested. I mean, it's taken me some really cool places. I've got to do some cool things and meet some really awesome people.
that's one of the things about our fish surveys that I really enjoy too, is like we go places that you just wouldn't go see or wouldn't visit for any other reason. So as that happens, you wind up seeing things that you probably never would have seen unless you'd have tried, and you didn't know it was there, so you never would have gone.
Oh, absolutely. And from the angler's perspective, I'm a lot better of an angler because of what I do for a living. Like, we know where it's at, what's happening, where the bite's at. Having been on some of the fish surveys with y'all, where the fish are, yeah, it's a unique insight.
All right. So since you said that, we work together with enforcement a lot. Sometimes it's because we need extra help. Sometimes it's because they need extra help. They need, us to, ID some fish or whatever it may be. But we work together a lot, and especially when it comes to our rulemaking process. Now, you can go back a few episodes and you can see our previous chief, and we really got in the weeds on that process. But part of that process is when we come up with a rule, we do this. We will go to one of the area enforcement meetings and say, hey, we're thinking about this rule. What are you guys' thoughts about it? Is it enforceable? Do you see any problems with it? What is y'all's take on it? And that's just part of our process of getting feedback to see if that rule's actually going to is it going to be meaningful out in the field, And that's a big part of that process. And then we take that feedback and sometimes we tweak the rule a little bit so that it is a little bit more meaningful. That's definitely something that we work together on. A lot of folks, when we run into folks that feel they're like, are you game warden? I'm like, I'm not the guy who enforces the rules. A lot of times we work together to make the rules, but we collect the numbers to make sure that the rules are appropriate. And that's basically how that teamwork between the two agencies seems to work the best.
Oh, absolutely. When you talk about managing wildlife, fish, game, it doesn't matter. The science is the foundation that you have to make good decisions. But then when you go to draft laws that regulate behavior, the words matter so much for us to be able to actually enforce it. If they're not just right, that great regulation may not have the intended effect, may be unenforceable. And when you don't have enforcement to back up your regulations, generally you don't influence behavior in the direction you're trying to get the outdoor person to go in. So yeah, the words matter. So it's cool how each of the different divisions in the agency have their own little areas of expertise, and then the overall mission overlaps. And when we all work together well, that's when we get it right.
So let's talk about fishing for a minute. I think that's what our listeners like to hear. So let's talk about fishing. From what you see out in the field, how is your perception of a successful angler versus an unsuccessful angler? How are those two groups different?
That's a great question. I'm not gonna lie, I could talk for all day about this. As someone who likes to fish, is also on the other side of it. Yeah. All right. So highlights then, right? One of the first questions we ask when we pull up to a boat, right, is, what are you fishing for? Like, that's one of the kind of normal questions we'll ask. And if I get the answer, whatever bites, I know the answer inevitably to my next question, which is, have you had any luck? Is probably going to be none. So one of the things we see out there is the people who don't have a plan for what they're targeting aren't as successful. That would be honestly one of the biggest tips I could give is you're going to spend the time and the money to get out there on the water, which we want you to do because it's an awesome sport, but really know what you're going after. Because we have a lot of different fish that overlap, but each one of them has their own specific tendencies. And if you know what that fish specific tendencies are and you target those things, you'll be so much more successful. Also, you got to know a whole lot of laws to catch anything out there and be legal. But if you're only targeting 2 or 3 things, it's not that many laws to stay on top of. So you'll be more successful and you'll be more likely to be legal, which we like both of those things. That's something I see all the time is a lot of people just kind of generically fishing, but they're not focused enough to have that technique honed in on to really be successful out in the water.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast a lot of, thinking like a fish, thinking like the fish that you're actually trying to target and having a plan. There's times that I just go fishing just to go fishing, just to get away. And I get that, but if you want to be successful at catching a fish, a plan is really good to have way out in advance. I mean, when Ben and I go fishing, generally I'm on Ben's boat because he's where I want to go fishing and I don't want to take my boat. But Ben generally has a plan in mind when we hit the water. Like he's like, we're going to go do this. We're going to go over here and do that. If that doesn't work, then we'll try this over here. We might not be on a very specific fish, but we're on 2 or 3 at the most.
Yeah, I would say in line with that is yes, you got to have a plan, but you also need to be fairly adaptable.
Yeah, you got to be able to pivot. Yeah.
I mean, I tell folks all the time that tournament fishing, which I don't do near as much of as I used to, but really any day of fishing is like this. Is like you form a plan, you desperately cling to that plan as it falls apart, form a new plan, and then repeat, and that's basically every day of fishing really is, okay, this isn't working. What do I need to do next? What do I need to know? And sometimes it's a technique change. Sometimes it's a species change. If the bass aren't biting, well, maybe we need to run up to the dam and see if we can catch a striper or something like that. Or maybe we need to hit some brush piles and see if the crappie are here. They were here a week ago, whatever. But sometimes being adaptable, but still having a plan is the key to having a successful day, and being able to take an advantage of things as they present themselves, I think is the best thing.
The other thing I would add is the more you do it, the better you will get at it. And that doesn't mean you'll be successful in catching fish that particular day, but you'll be better at it because you'll remember things. Like I write almost everything down. I'm whatever about it. Ben doesn't write anything down. It's all in his brain.
It's slowly failing me.
But I write a lot of stuff down. Like if I go and I have a day that is successful, I'll write what I caught it on, what the water temperature was, what the wind was doing, where I was at, that kind of stuff, just in a little notebook, just so I can go back and think about it later. And even when I'm not successful, I write what I did, what I didn't catch, and for me, that helps me. It's just my process. Not everybody's going to do it the way I do it, and I get it. But you can kind of think back to, okay, when I was in this situation before and I was successful, I did this, and that's what seemingly gave me success. Let me go try that again. Let me go repeat that and see if that holds true again. And if it holds true, then maybe you've found something that fish is really keyed in on that type of condition or that type of day or whatever. That doesn't always hold true. It varies. But for me, it is in the projects that I've worked on, the scientific projects that I've worked on, that involved angling. Yes, there are certain ones that do that.
They're my favorite.
But, I got notebooks and notebooks of fish data, and I write all those things down that I talked about. And I can be like, all right, in November of this year, these fish were here. Let's go see November of this coming year if they're still in that spot. And generally, they are. They might not be there that very day, but if you keep visiting that location, they'll come back around. There's something about that time of the year, the water temperature, whatever, that brings them back to that spot. And so that's what I mean by having a plan, like thinking back through your successes, I'll call them failures, but they're not really failures. You're fishing. Thinking back through those things will help you be a better fisherman over the years. At least that's the way I view it.
And from my experience, because we run creel surveys and enforcement often puts a face in from time to time, if you're struggling, these guys will be happy to say, well, have you tried over here? Or what are you doing? I mean, they're out there just like we are. They've seen some guys have some success, and they're not necessarily going to give you, everything, but they might say, hey, you might want to try, the third creek on the left and, see what happens.
100% agree. Yeah. Like I said, love fishing, love seeing other people out there doing it. And your local game warden can share some good tips. So if he stops and checks you, definitely give him a good smile and ask, because we like people to be successful. It's fun. We like checking people with fish. You were talking about the different variables you write down, and that was something that kind of struck me too. We pay attention, spend a lot of times watching people to see, are they even having any success? What kind of angler are they? So we spend a lot of time watching. One of the things I've noticed consistently with my better anglers is they're not just focused on like the number of fish they catch or even just the fish, but they pay attention kind of everything going on around them, right? Like they're kind of students of nature a little bit in a bigger sense. Like they're looking for where are the birds at, where are the baits at, where's that little current seams, all those little details. Instead of being spot focused, where they just run through a bunch of different spots hoping the fish are, they pay attention to what made that spot good. You can get onto some of those patterns that you're talking about, finding the ones that really pay attention to every little detail that's going on when they have one of those good bites. You can really put together some cool patterns that you can then use to adapt when things get tough. but you got to be paying attention to those different things.
Yeah, that's one of the things is, especially on a tough day, if you find some fish, the next thing I do is I look at the map and I say, where is the next closest place that's exactly like this?
Mhm.
And typically, once you do that, it may not be the next spot, but if the next spot has fish, you're like, okay, I'm on to something here. Maybe I need to keep tracking down this and see if this is really a pattern. Because, if it happens about 3 times, it's a pattern.
It's a pattern.
Yeah, that's what I do in my troutcation. I'm not blind because Ben's like, hey, we found some here, we found some there, and I'll go and try to figure that out. But even sometimes Ben's advice is not great.
I can't believe you picked this week to come.
Yeah, Ben, no, that is his advice. Like, why did you pick this week? This is horrible. It's been terrible. And the past couple of years have been a little bit like that, but I'm there long enough. I'm spending enough time, which not everybody gets to do that. I get that. And, a lot of people go on the weekends and stuff. I only get to go basically 2 weeks out of the year. That's basically my time. I take the 2 weeks off, I go fishing, and then I go back to work, and then I don't get to fish a whole lot after that. But by the end of the 2 weeks, I usually have figured something out. It might not be perfect, but I've figured out and the patterns change from year to year. Like, it won't be the same. Like, some years they're on points. Some years they're deep in the creek. Some years they're out in the main channel. Some years they're, in the doesn't even make sense where, that they're there. Why are they there? So I'm sitting there studying, like, I don't understand why these fish are here, kind of thing, and trying to figure that out. So it's amazing how if you give it time, and it's time on the water, makes you a better boat driver, and it makes you a better fisherman usually, because you study those things over that period of time.
Right, because when you're on the water, that's where fish are, because fish need water. There you go. Shameless
plug by us.
Now, what are some of the other things that you wish anglers knew more about the enforcement division as a whole?
Oh, man, that is a great question. So I think just understanding maybe the scale of what it is we're trying to do. So if you look at the state as a whole, I think it's something like 54,000 square miles of area. It's a big state. About 5,000 square miles of that is water. Just to put it in perspective, what we're doing out there, we have about 140-ish officers in the field to cover that entire area. There's 100 counties, so about 1.4 officers per county. That's not a lot of people to cover a whole lot of activity. So the officers have a huge responsibility on their hand. And we wear a lot of hats. Like we talked about before, we're not just finding tickets to write. We're writing depredation permits. We're covering and helping treat injured animals. We're moving nuisance animals, tons of training to make sure that we're even capable and competent to do what we need to do, spending a lot of times doing programs and education. Like there's a lot going on. The only way that we can do this job well is for the public to be involved. So understanding the scale of what we are trying to accomplish for the public, and then recognizing, man, you, the public, have a really important role in the enforcement side of things. I would love for people to really grasp that. I think they get it a lot of the times, but there's just so much out there, and the public really needs to be involved in that.
Yeah, you said a lot of things went through my mind when you were talking, but I don't think the public really understands that there's so few of you. Because that is a common theme I got from anglers when I'm on the water and they know I'm a fish biologist or I work for the fish division or we were doing surveys. I never see LEOs. I never see law enforcement, wildlife enforcement officers on the water. And I'm like, well, they're around. One, they don't necessarily want to be completely visible all the time. I'll say that up front. But also, there are so many things. Like just take spring of the year. There's a lot of fishing activity that happens in the spring of the year, particularly in the coast. There's a lot of fishing activity that's going on. At the same time, turkeys are being hunted. And there's other things y'all have to do. I mean, there's so many multitasks that you have to accomplish in such a short window of time. And on top of that, you don't have that many people. And so that's where the public involvement really is important. Like if you see something, say something. If something's going wrong or you see something unsafe, call our enforcement hotline. It'll eventually get to an LEO pretty quickly because it goes by radio. And the LEO, if they're in the area, they will go check that out. So I would tell people, get involved in the sense of, if you see something that you think is wrong or you see something that, is clearly unsafe, like something's falling apart or somebody backed their boat in the water and there goes the truck. The truck's in the water too. That does happen. Call 911, or call our enforcement hotline, and it'll eventually quickly get to our folks. But yeah, that is a common theme I hear is, there's just not that many. I don't see wildlife enforcement officers. And I'm like, well, they're around. They're having to cover a lot of territory.
It's funny you say that because I only ever hear two versions of that. It's that version, and I don't see enough of y'all, or it's I see way too much of y'all. It's never we're never quite the right amount.
See a adequate number of you.
Yeah, there's definitely that for sure. And maybe I'm sure LEOs get into a pattern that they like or they do, and so it becomes a common thing. I was fishing in Troutcation 2 years ago, and I got stopped by Marine Patrol 3 times in 2 weeks, and I'm just like, am I throwing up a flag? What am I doing? Because I've never been stopped by Marine Patrol. What is going on here?
Had that look.
I mean, they'd go by me and turn back around. I'm like, here they come again. I mean, they're just doing their jobs, and I'm fine with it. But yeah, it was just like, man, I must have like a radar on me. They got me pegged this week. So anyway.
But I'm glad you mentioned, like, if you see something, say something. I can tell you from experience that our best cases almost always started with someone from the public contacting us. Like, that's the only way you get to figure out about something that's happening in the middle of the woods or in the middle of the waterway where there's not many eyeballs. And we really do need that help. A lot of times, kind of the barrier we run into is we hear, well, I don't want to get involved. We hear that a lot. And I guess I would gently push back on that and say, I think you are involved. So a concept that not everybody knows about, but our wildlife resources are public trust resource in the state of North Carolina. What that means is the fish and game doesn't belong to the state, and it doesn't belong to any one individual. It belongs to the public as a whole. And then the state manages that and tries to make sure it's there for future generations, but it belongs to the public. So when you have people who are trying to intentionally violate and cause problems, like, that's your resource and you are involved. And so we want you to have some ownership of that whole piece of the puzzle. And it's a huge piece of the puzzle. We definitely need the public's participation.
And I get this a lot, especially with the podcast now and everything, is if you see something and you want enforcement to know about it, don't email me. Because by the time I relay the message, whatever's going on may not be you. Like, you really do need to call the violation number. Do you have that right on the top of your head?
Yeah, it's 1-800-662-7137. And then you hit 1 at the phone tree, and that'll pipe you right into our dispatch.
So call it in, because by the time you email a biologist that you know and say this is going on, it may not be going on anymore by the time we relay it. Or a lot of folks will say, well, 2 weeks ago, I saw some guys doing this and I didn't think it was right. And I'm like, well, it was in fact not right. And it was 2 weeks ago.
And now it's too late.
It's too late. So, if you're convicted enough to tell somebody about it, make sure you're following the right channels so that the response can be appropriate.
So the one question I have for you is, what advice do you have to an angler that's on the water and you are approaching them either by land or you're approaching them via a boat? I've been with a lot of people. Like, for me, I guess because I work for the Wildlife Commission, I'm cool. Like, come on the boat, do whatever you got to do. I mean, hopefully I've done everything right and checked everything and made sure everything's good. But in general, I'm good with it. But I've been on the boat with a lot of different people and they get nervous. Like, they are nervous, even though everything they've done is good. They've done nothing wrong. They're just out there trying to do their best. They just get nervous. What advice do you have to people to kind of break that nervousness or to feel more comfortable with you guys and the interaction that you guys have with them?
Yeah, I love that question. And some of this is just knowing what to expect, right? So what we have as game wardens, one of our authorities is called an inspection authority. And that just means that if you're boating or trapping or fishing or hunting, and we see you're involved in that activity, we can come do a compliance check. And so that's what you're talking about. You're talking when we're pulling up to the boat to do a compliance check. And it's really simple. If we stop you, it's not necessarily because we know you're wrong. It doesn't mean that. We're probably just doing a compliance check. And we just want to see that you've got your fishing license and then whatever safety equipment you're supposed to have for the boat, along with it being registered. So if we pull up and stop, you can even start that process off pretty quick just by starting to get out enough life jackets for everybody on board. If it's 16 feet or longer, you're going to need what's called a throwable PFD. Get your fire extinguisher out and have your license and registration ready. And that check will take a minute, maybe 2 at most. We'll probably make some polite conversation. But you don't need to get nervous. I understand that a lot of people are going to get nervous, but we're not out there thinking this person's wrong and I'm going to figure it out. It's just a compliance check. We want to make sure you're safe. We want to make sure you have the proper licenses, and we'll even throw you a tip or two if you ask us, probably. So the best advice I have is just, relax, smile at us, and have your stuff ready. It doesn't take very long. There's nothing to it.
Yeah, I think one of the messages that I wanted to get across, and Corey, I've talked about it on the podcast before, but enforcement guys are the same way. Like, we hunt, we fish. When we're not working, we're doing the exact same thing y'all are doing. And the one thing that we're definitely not doing is, rolling our fingers, knuckles on the table, trying to figure out how to make people's lives harder. That's not at all the goal. In fact, even though it may ring hollow, most of the time we're trying to make it better in some shape or form.
Yeah, I like to say it a lot. Our job and our goal as an agency is to do conservation with you, not to you. And really, that's the goal of this podcast. That's the goal of our agency as a whole, from the director's office all the way down to field staff and everybody in between. This conservation effort is with you, is with the public. It's in conjunction with the public. It is not to the public. We're not doing it to you. Sometimes I think it can feel that way. I think people can get that feeling for sure. That is not the intention of it all. I mean, that's why you see us have public hearing after public hearing after public hearing when it comes to any kind of rule or regulation, because we actually want you to make comments. We want you to say, we think this is a good idea, or we think this is a bad idea, or this is stupid. Why are you doing this? And actually have the conversation, because that enlightens us. That gives us information that we can use. And so often I think people think that conservation is being done to them. And that is not our goal. Our goal is to do it with you.
And one of the things I want to point out too, you asked me, what are some of the things I like about this job earlier? There's a lot of law enforcement work out there you can choose from. One of the things that I really like about being a game warden is more than 90% of the people we deal with, like, perfectly in line with the law, law abiding, doing it exactly the right way. So that's really pleasant experience, getting to just check your equipment, talk to you, you're doing it right, and we go on our way. That's a really nice aspect of the job. It's only a small handful that are actually trying to do wrong. Very small handful. And most of the people wrong, it's just an unintentional oversight. And we have a lot of ways of handling that. There's no quotas. There's no pressure like that on us to write tickets for any sort of financial reason or anything like that. Most of the public's right. And we're just glad to help be there, make sure it's in compliance and make sure everyone's safe.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of the questions I get about our rules are like, well, I'm going next week and I just want to make sure I'm right. I'm like, well, we want to the last thing we want you to do
100%.
is, get a ticket when you're trying to do right.
Call and ask. I tell everybody, well, I didn't know. Call and ask ahead of time, especially if you're going to a new area you haven't fished before, or for a new species you're not familiar with. It will never hurt our feelings for you to look up that local warden, get his work cell number. We have him for a reason, to call us and say, hey, what do I need to do to make sure I'm on the right side of things? We love people being proactive that way. We'd much rather have a conversation on the front side and say, here's what you need to do, than find you out there and unintentionally wrong.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you need to get up with a game warden, you can call us. We'll either look it up or put you in contact with Kyle, and we'll get you in the right person. The same thing we do with all the questions you guys send us. So,
is it time for questions?
It could be. That was a good segue. Well, before we do that,
just ruin the segue. Go ahead.
No, well, we got objectives here. And one is, there's some non-native fish out there.
Oh, yes, please.
Kyle, is it okay to move around fish?
Do not move fish around.
He's listened to the podcast.
Yes.
You're the first one I've lobbed up on.
Learned. He's learned. He's a scholar of the podcast.
Yeah, don't move fish around. It's a blue light special.
I'm glad you guys talk about it as often as you do. Keep preaching.
I don't know that we're successful.
It has
People
caused
keep moving fish around.
several problems in some of our waterways. And it's not necessarily the problems that we have that we're trying to avoid. It's the problems that we might get in the future with something that could be worse. So, all right, now we can talk about questions.
Okay.
How about that?
That sounds great. I'm going to kick it off with a letter from a fan. We don't get many fan letters, but we got a fan letter here. So Ryan Truitt wrote us a letter, said he's an avid fisherman, admires both of our devotions to giving people like him a lot of information, helpful information. I like that he put devotion. I thought that was a great word. I had to look it up in the dictionary, figure out what it meant.
It is.
But yeah, has led to becoming successful and strongly recommends the podcast to other people. So I just wanted to read that on there and thank Ryan for listening, and thanks for sharing about the podcast to others. And
did he give you his address?
he did.
I bet that's going to work out well for him.
Box is already in the mail.
Okay. So we appreciate y'all listening.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan.
Like it, share it, subscribe. Now that we're on the YouTube, you can subscribe to us, but share us with your friends, because that's our objective, is really to try to help y'all catch more fish and understand what's going out there a little bit better. And we're trying to hit
It's to communicate
all the stuff. We're all over the state trying to talk about different opportunities at different levels. And so if this podcast isn't for you, tune into the next one.
It might be.
But let's get into our questions. Again, you guys have been great about sending us questions, especially pond questions. I have become the unofficial
Pond guru.
pond technical assistance person for the state, which is...
Does that come with a pay raise?
It does not.
Oh, okay.
It does. I mean, it could. You are my supervisor.
No.
Maybe we should open this up for discussion in a public forum.
Sorry, that was a bad idea.
Okay.
It does not come with a pay raise.
Anyway,
It's gratis to the state.
it was his idea, is what I just heard. Didn't you hear that?
I
Kyle?
heard it and I can testify.
It was his idea. Anyway, that got me off my train of thought there. I was thinking about all the things I was going to buy, like fishing baits. But okay, we've got Mr. Sutton. He's been catching some fish and he's having a hard time telling whether or not they are largemouth bass or Alabama bass. Who wants it?
I'll let you handle it. You're the bass guy.
Okay.
And you worked in Alabama. So
I
if
did.
you don't know this,
I did.
pay deduction.
I was going to say, take that pay away.
Yeah. And you did not
I
bring
did
them
not
here.
bring them
You
here.
did not bring them here. That's true.
I like Alabama bass where they are native. I'm not a big fan of the ramifications that they've given our fine state, but where they're native and where I used to work, we had a lot of them and they were fun to fish for. The best way to tell, really in my mind, if you have one of each and you have them right beside each other, you will know one of these things is not like the other. But if you only have one, especially, one that's like 10 to 12 inches or smaller, sometimes it can be a little trickier to tell. The easiest way is that Alabama bass have a tooth patch and largemouth bass typically don't. Now, if you have them side by side, you can see that their jaws are shaped a little bit different. An Alabama bass is a little more longer looking than a largemouth bass. I mean, there's some subtle differences, but the telltale easiest way,
Spots on the scales.
yeah,
On the belly.
is that tooth patch. Now, once you've caught some, once you have them side by side, I really don't think it'll take anybody a long time to be able to pick them out.
And if you don't know what a tooth patch is, it's like a rough, sandy feeling, hard structure on the back of the throat. You can literally hit it with your finger, or you can
Feel like a little patch of sandpaper.
it feels like sandpaper on their tongue. Yeah, that's what it feels like.
And you can always email us at twoballbiologist@ncwildlife.gov, and we'll be happy to ID it for you. We do that a lot.
And I will also say you can go to our website, ncwildlife.gov, and look up the black bass page. There are clear pictures of the different species of bass that occur in our state, and it tells you how to identify them. So that's also there.
Mm-hmm. And other species. So there you go. Our next one, Mr. Rulin, he listened to our Hawassi podcast talking about walleye. He says it sounds like he might be able to catch them on a fly rod.
Yes, I would say he could.
He asked what techniques he should use. Now,
I am not your guy.
I'm up, right?
Yeah, you're up.
Unless you've done a lot of walleye fly fishing.
Not fly fishing.
I have not done a lot of walleye fly fishing either, but I'm going to talk about it. So we were up there. We saw the habitat. It's relatively shallow. It's night fishing, but I would think, clousers, deceivers, any type of minnow imitator, and just when you strip it, short, erratic movements to really get their attention. I don't think you need anything real fancy, just, a minnow imitation, and either probably white or yellow would probably be two good choices. I mean, there's probably others, and then just a real erratic movements to get their attention. And I think it could be pretty effective, actually.
I do too. I mean, they're not in more than, most of it's 2 to 3 to 4 foot of water at the most. I think they'll hit it if it's in front of them and it's doing what you said, that erratic motion. I think they'll hit it.
Mm-hmm. Some flies have a little bead rattle in it that might help get their attention a little bit more. But yeah, something along those lines, I think you could.
There's no doubt in my mind that there's people in the mountains that are fishing for walleye with fly rods. There's no doubt in my mind. I don't know about it, but there's no doubt in my mind that that's occurring somewhere.
Somebody's doing it. Okay. And then our last question. Mr. Green, he's emailed us several times. He wants an update on the Roanoke River striped bass spawn and run. He wanted us to do a whole podcast. We very well may do another striped bass podcast, but I didn't want him to have to wait.
Yeah.
So let me give
him the rundown.
The cliff notes of what we saw this spring. The Roanoke River striped bass population is still not at all where we want it to be. We're at a low abundance, relatively high mortality. That's why we have the regulations that we currently have. The hope is that we don't have those regulations for long. We have been stocking with support from the
Division Marine Fisheries and the North Carolina Marine and Estuarine Foundation.
There we go. Thank you. I drew a blank on that.
That's all right. That's what I'm here for.
They're our partners.
Fill the blanks.
I was working on a presentation on this just yesterday. We are stocking. We have restrictive rules right now. To me, the most encouraging thing that I saw this spring was we saw all size, like while the numbers were lower, we saw all size classes of fish. We saw small fish, which because of some of the spawning issues we have, there's not a whole lot of small fish, but we did see them. We saw medium-sized fish. We saw the 20-pounders, which we haven't seen in years. And we saw, the big guys or gals. So the age distribution, the size distribution, to me, looked really good. We just need to kind of keep pushing this train in hopes that we can get their abundance back to where they need to be. So to me, it was maybe a little bit better than last year, but we're still not out of the woods yet with it. But there's also plenty of fish to catch up there. If you want to go catch fish, you can go up there in springtime and catch fish. It's not like there's no fish left to catch, which I think sometimes people hear what we say and think, oh, well, it's not even worth doing. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, you just can't harvest them right now.
It's just not, the abundance isn't what it was when I was a kid fishing on that river, for sure. So,
yeah. I mean, I think the take home message is we're working on it. We realize how important it is. It's important to us. It's important to our state. It's important to that part of the state for sure.
It is why I became a fish biologist.
Exactly. And we are desperately trying to figure things out. We don't have all the answers yet, and probably will never have all the answers when it comes to this. But I think all of our biologists, including you, were a little bit encouraged from this spring, at least from the size class structure that they saw. So I think that's great.
Yeah. I mean, it's not.
Well, yeah, it's not great, but it's,
it's encouraging.
It's better than it was last year, in at least in the sense of a size structure. The abundance is not any better, but it's going to take time. I mean, I think that's the take-home message. I hate to say that, but what that time frame is, I have no idea. It's just going to take time. These things always take time because it's a life process, and you're trying to get older, bigger fish back in the population to produce little fish. It just takes time.
It's true. Kyle will know the answer to this. How many years does it take to create a 5-year-old fish?
Oh, I got it. 5.
Yes.
5 years.
So there's no way to speed up that process. And these fish live 25 years. So to get the big guys where they need to be, it's a time, it's investment.
And we're not saying it's going to take 25 years.
No, we're not saying that.
Don't take that as the take-home message.
In fact, I hope that we can do something way sooner than that, and we'll see where that takes us. But
we still have a youth mortality problem.
Yes.
We still have a juvenile mortality problem that we don't know the answer to.
Right.
And that's true of striped bass, really, in all of our coastal rivers. We have a juvenile mortality problem.
Right. And we're working on addressing that. We've got some funds set aside to do a project, and hopefully that'll get off the ground in the next year or so to kind of look at that spawning success and why we're having limitations across the state. So Kyle, do you have anything that you want to add to that? I really enjoyed having you on here.
Well, yeah, no, I certainly appreciate it. I would just add, I think this comes across in the podcast, but if it doesn't, for you listeners out there, you can hear the knowledge that comes from these two individuals. And in all my time working with fisheries, and I jump on the survey boats a good little bit, I can tell you our biologists are not only knowledgeable, but they really care. So I hope you can hear that come across. And when we talk about striped bass, I don't know how many hours I've talked to you about this striped bass conundrum. Like, they really care about making this the best fishery they can with the data to support it. So I just really appreciate what y'all do. I know every time I work with the fisheries biologist folks, like, they are motivated, they're engaged, they ask us what they can do for us. I really appreciate what your division does and appreciate just being able to come up here and talk for a little bit.
Yeah, well, thank you. And we appreciate enforcement and the partnership we have with you guys as well. So it works out well. And I don't think our resources win without both sides of this factor. So,
totally agree.
Who was our monthly winner?
Our monthly winner is going to be, I'm going to have to email him because I don't have his address. So if you send us a question, it would be great if you would send me your address and maybe your t-shirt size. But Mr. Rulin, our walleye fisherman, we're going to send him a goodie bag to hopefully catch a walleye with.
There you go. Well, Kyle, we appreciate it so much, and we will catch y'all next time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission's podcast, Better Fishing with Two Bald Biologists. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a positive review and share with your friends. If you have questions, you can email us at twobaldbiologists@ncwildlife.gov, or for more information, visit ncwildlife.gov. Until next time, stay safe and take somebody fishing.